Kate Morgan opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt badly. Everything around her was red from the emergency lights. She tried to remember what happened, but her mind felt fuzzy and confused. She was floating. That meant the artificial gravity was not working anymore. Kate reached out and grabbed onto something metal. She pulled herself up and looked around the bridge of her ship. Everything was broken. Screens were cracked. Wires hung from the ceiling. Smoke was still coming from some of the damaged equipment. The smell of burnt plastic filled the air inside her helmet. Then she remembered. The attack. They had been hit by a Krelith warship. Kate had been in the cargo bay when it happened. She heard the explosions, felt the ship shake. Then everything went dark. How long had she been unconscious? Kate checked her suit computer. 6 hours. She had been floating in the dark for 6 hours while the ship died around her. Kate pushed herself toward the bridge stations. She needed to check on her crew. She needed to know if anyone else survived. But deep inside, she already knew the answer. The ship was too quiet, too still. Lieutenant Danny Cole was still sitting at his station. His body was frozen. His face was pale. Kate knew what that meant. The bridge had lost pressure during the attack. Danny had died instantly. Kate wanted to cry, but the tears would not come. Not yet. She had to check the others first. She had to know for sure. She pulled herself through the broken corridors. Every section she passed showed more damage. More destruction. The Krelith had not just attacked them. They had torn the ship apart. Chief Engineer Lisa Hayes was in the engine room. Or what was left of the engine room. The plasma conduits had exploded. The heat had been so intense that the metal walls had melted. Lisa was gone. There was nothing left to recover. Kate found Navigator Alex Chen in the corridor between decks. Alex had been her friend for 12 years. They went through the academy together, served on 3 different ships together. Now Alex was just another body in the wreckage. She checked the medical bay. Dr. Sam Rivera was there, still in his chair. The explosion had thrown debris everywhere. Sam had not had a chance to even move. Weapons Officer Nina Brooks, Communications Specialist Jake Peters, all dead, all gone. The Valkyrie had carried 8 crew members. Now only Kate was left. Kate returned to the bridge. She sat down in the captain's chair and stared at the dark screens. The main power was gone, but some auxiliary systems were still working. Life support was running on emergency batteries. She had maybe 2 days of air left, not that it mattered much. They were far from any help. The outer fringe was a dangerous place. No colonies nearby, no patrol ships. Just empty space and raiders like the Krelith who hunted easy targets. Kate pulled up the ship's logs. The computer had recorded everything. She watched the attack happen again on the small screen. The Krelith ship appeared without warning. They fired immediately. The Valkyrie had no chance to defend itself or run away. The attack lasted 11 minutes. In those 11 minutes, the Krelith destroyed her ship and killed everyone she cared about. Then they just left. They did not even finish the job. They just assumed the Valkyrie would die slowly in space. Kate felt something cold growing inside her chest. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was anger. Pure, cold anger. The Krelith had made a big mistake. They had left her alive. They thought a broken ship meant a defeated captain. They were wrong. Kate started checking what was left of the ship's systems. The main engine was completely destroyed. The navigation computer was damaged but still working. The sensors were operating on backup power. She pulled up the cargo bay inventory. Most of it was still intact. Medical supplies for the colonies, construction equipment, raw materials for building, and something else, something that was not supposed to be on a civilian transport ship. 16 cases of military plasma charges, high explosives meant for demolition work. They were supposed to be delivered to a mining company, but Kate knew what they really were. Weapons. Dangerous weapons. She looked at the sensor logs again. The Krelith ship had followed a straight path after the attack. Kate traced the line on the navigation map. They were heading somewhere specific, somewhere they felt safe. Kate cross-referenced the path with known locations in the fringe. There were not many options. Most of the area was empty space. But there was one possibility. An old mining station called Epsilon 7. The station had been abandoned for 30 years. But it was still intact, still functional. A perfect hiding place for raiders and pirates. A perfect base for the Krelith to plan their attacks. Kate sat back in her chair. She should have felt hopeless. She should have felt defeated. But instead she felt something else, purpose. The Kralith had killed her crew, destroyed her ship, taken everything from her, but they had also made one critical error. They had left her alive with nothing to lose. Kate began making plans. The main engine was gone, but the small maneuvering thrusters still worked. She had plasma charges that could be modified. She had emergency power that could be redirected. She had tools and equipment in the cargo bay. Most importantly, she had motivation. 7 people were dead because of the Kralith. 7 friends, 7 crew members who trusted her to keep them safe. She had failed them in life, but she would not fail them in death. Kate stood up and moved toward the cargo bay. There was a lot of work to do. She had to turn this broken, dying ship into something the Kralith would never expect. A weapon, a delivery system for revenge. She spoke out loud even though no one could hear her. The habit was hard to break. Speaking to her crew, explaining her plans, but now she was talking to ghosts. Danny, Lisa, Alex, Sam, Nina, Jake. I promise you this. The Kralith will pay for what they did. They think we are weak. They think they can attack us without consequences. I am going to teach them a lesson they will never forget. Kate reached the cargo bay and began pulling equipment from the storage containers. She had 2 days of air, 2 days to build something impossible, 2 days to transform herself from a transport captain into something the galaxy had never seen before. A human with nothing left to lose. A survivor with a mission, a captain ready to sacrifice everything for revenge. The Kralith had destroyed her ship, killed her crew. But her revenge was just beginning, and when it was finished, they would learn what it meant to make an enemy of humanity. Kate worked without stopping. She had dragged a sleeping mat into the cargo bay and placed it between the storage boxes, but she barely used it. Sleep only came in short bursts, maybe an hour at a time. Her body was exhausted, but her mind would not let her rest. The cargo bay had become her entire world. She ate food from the emergency supplies without tasting it, just fuel to keep her body moving. Every minute counted now. Every hour brought her closer to running out of air. The plasma charges were laid out on the floor in front of her. 16 cases. 96 individual explosives. Each one could blow a hole through a ship's hull. Together they could destroy a small city. But first she had to reach Epsilon 7. That was the big problem. The main engine was completely destroyed. There was no way to repair it. The small maneuvering thrusters could push the ship a short distance, but not the 3 million kilometers she needed to travel. Kate studied the ship's engineering diagrams for hours. Lisa would have understood all of this easily. Lisa could fix anything, but Lisa was gone and Kate had to figure it out herself. The emergency batteries were still working. They were designed to keep life support running for 3 days if the reactor failed. Kate had an idea. The batteries used the same type of energy cells as the plasma charges. What if she could connect them together? It was dangerous. It was stupid. Lisa would have called her crazy. But Lisa was not here and Kate was out of options. She started working. She pulled power cables through the narrow maintenance corridors. She connected the cargo bay systems to the thruster controls. She bypassed every safety system that would have stopped her plan from working. The work was hard and slow. Kate's hands were shaking from exhaustion. Her suit was covered in grease and dirt. But she kept going. She had to keep going. After 32 hours of constant work, she was ready to test it. Kate returned to the bridge and sat down at the controls. She said a silent prayer to whoever might be listening. Then she activated the new system. The ship groaned. Metal scraped against metal. For a moment, Kate thought the whole thing would fall apart. But then she felt it. Movement. The Valkyrie was moving forward. It was slow. The thrust was uneven. The controls barely responded. But it worked. She could actually move the ship. Kate spent the next 8 hours testing and adjusting. Each plasma charge she used for propulsion was one less charge for the attack on Epsilon 7. She had to be careful. She had to be precise. She calculated the course over and over. A straight line to Epsilon 7 would use 43 charges. That would leave 53 charges for the mission. It was enough. It had to be enough. If she missed the target, if her calculations were wrong by even a small amount, she would drift past the station with no way to turn back. She would die slowly in the dark, running out of air while Epsilon 7 disappeared behind her. Kate refused to think about that possibility. She had come this far. She would not fail now. She activated the improvised engine. The Valkyrie lurched forward like a wounded animal trying to move. The entire ship vibrated. Warning lights flashed on every console. But they were moving. Slowly, painfully, the dead ship began to crawl through space. Kate stayed in the cargo bay, her hands on the controls every second. The system needed constant adjustment. Too much power and the connections would burn out. Too little power and they would not build up enough speed. She lived next to the controls, eating, sleeping, working, all in the same small space. Her world had shrunk to readouts and calculations, numbers and trajectories. Nothing else mattered. 3 days into the journey, Kate picked up something on the sensors. It was faint, just a whisper of a signal, but it was there. High-frequency military communications, the kind the Kralith used. Kate felt her heart beat faster. Not from fear, from anticipation. She was getting close. The Kralith were at Epsilon 7, just like she predicted. She diverted a tiny amount of power to the sensor array and waited. Hours crawled by. The signal grew stronger. Then finally she saw it. Epsilon 7 appeared on her screen. The old mining station looked like a giant wheel turning slowly in space. Docking ports lined the outer edge. And connected to one of those ports was the Kralith warship, the same ship that had destroyed the Valkyrie. Kate stared at it. That ship had killed Danny, Lisa, Alex, Sam, Nina, Jake, everyone she cared about, and now it was right there within her reach. She shut down the improvised engine and let momentum carry her forward. The Valkyrie was running completely dark now. No power, no signals, no heat signature. To any sensors, she would look like space debris. Just another piece of junk floating through the fringe. Kate drifted for 6 long hours, getting closer and closer to the station. During that time, she watched the Kralith carefully. They launched patrol ships on regular schedules. Small craft that flew around the station looking for threats. Then they returned and launched again. They were predictable, following patterns. That was good. Predictable enemies made mistakes. They got comfortable. They stopped paying attention. The Kralith thought they were safe out here in the fringe. They thought no one would come after them. They thought humanity was too weak or too scared to fight back. Kate checked her suit's life support system. 8 hours of air left. She checked the plasma charges one more time. 53 charges ready to use. She checked herself. Was she really going to do this? Yes, without question, without doubt. The Kralith had taken everything from her. Now she would take everything from them. She pulled up the old blueprints of Epsilon 7 from the navigation computer. The station had been built to last. Strong walls, multiple sections, backup systems everywhere. But it was not built to be a fortress. It was built to be a home for miners and their families. The docking ring was designed for cargo ships, not warships. The corridors inside were wide and easy to move through. And most importantly, the reactor that powered everything was right in the center of the station, with minimal shielding. If Kate could get inside the station, if she could reach that reactor, she could turn the entire place into a bomb. The Kralith warship docked at the port would be caught in the explosion. Even if they tried to escape, the debris would tear them apart. Kate knew this was a one-way trip. Once she left the Valkyrie, there was no coming back. No escape, no rescue. This mission would end with her death. She thought about her crew one more time, remembered their faces, their voices, the way they laughed, the way they worked together as a team. They were her family, the only family she had left. Kate loaded the remaining plasma charges onto a cargo sled. She secured it carefully. She sealed her helmet and checked all the suit systems. Everything was ready. The Valkyrie drifted to within 1 kilometer of Epsilon 7. Close enough. Kate activated the cargo sled's maneuvering jets and pushed off from the airlock. The sled pulled her away from her ship and toward the station. She was just a small dot moving through space, just another piece of debris. The Kralith patrols passed nearby but did not notice her. Why would they? Dead ships did not launch attacks. Destroyed crews did not come back for revenge, but Kate Morgan was coming back, and she was bringing hell with her. The maintenance airlock on the outer ring of Epsilon 7 was unlocked. Kate had expected that. The station had been empty for 30 years. No one lived here except the Kralith raiders, and they probably thought they were safe. Kate cycled through the airlock manually. The door opened with a loud grinding sound. She froze and waited, but no alarms went off. No guards came running. The Kralith had not heard her. The corridor beyond was dark except for dim emergency lights. Dust floated in the air, disturbed by her entry. Kate could see footprints on the floor. Four-toed prints. Kralith boots. They had been through here recently. She pulled the cargo sled through the airlock and closed the door behind her. The sled held 40 plasma charges, more than enough to destroy this entire station. She just had to get them to the right place. The station's gravity was very weak, maybe 1/10 of normal. Kate adjusted her movements carefully. She pushed off the walls gently, pulling the sled behind her. Every sound was dangerous now. Every movement had to be silent. The corridor curved with the rotation of the station ring. According to the blueprints in her memory, she needed to reach the central hub. From there, she could access the reactor level. Kate moved slowly through the empty corridors. She could hear the Kralith above her. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the metal structure, voices speaking in their rough language. They sounded relaxed, comfortable. They did not expect any trouble. Good. Comfortable enemies made fatal mistakes. She reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Left would take her deeper into the residential sections where people used to live. Right led to the industrial areas. Straight ahead was the elevator shaft that went to the central hub. Kate chose straight ahead. She approached the elevator carefully. The power was off, but the shaft was open. She looked up into the darkness. The central hub was somewhere above her. She secured the cargo sled to her suit's harness and began to climb. Metal rungs lined the wall of the shaft. Maintenance ladders for workers to use in emergencies. Kate pulled herself up hand over hand, the sled floating behind her in the weak gravity. She passed sealed doors marking different levels. Each door had a sign: Residential Level 3, Medical Level 2, Administrative Level 1. Kate remembered what Lisa had told her about Epsilon 7. 5,000 people had lived here once, families, children, a whole community. Now it was empty. A ghost station that the Kralith had claimed as their base, a place where they planned their attacks on human ships. Kate reached the central hub and pulled herself through the access hatch. The hub was much larger than she expected. A round chamber 50 meters across. No gravity at all here. Corridors branched off in 6 directions, leading to different parts of the station. And floating in the center of the chamber was a Kralith guard. Kate stopped moving. Her heart pounded in her chest. The guard had not seen her yet. He was looking at a data pad, probably checking some routine patrol list. Kate slowly reached for the plasma cutter on her belt. The plasma cutter was not designed as a weapon. It was a tool for cutting metal, but it would have to work now. The guard looked up. Their eyes met, human and alien. For 1 second, they both froze. Then the guard reached for his weapon. Kate was faster. She activated the plasma cutter and pushed off toward the guard. In zero gravity, momentum was everything. The superheated cutting beam caught the Kralith across the chest. His suit lost pressure instantly. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Kate grabbed the body before it could drift away. She pulled it to the nearest corridor and shoved it inside. She found a piece of broken equipment and wedged the hatch shut. It would not hold forever, but it might buy her some time. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from the adrenaline rushing through her body. She had just killed someone, the first death she had caused with her own hands. But there was no time to think about it. She had to keep moving. Kate checked the blueprint again in her mind. The reactor level was accessible through the lower hub corridor. She pulled the cargo sled forward and pushed off, moving with purpose now. Speed mattered more than silence. The Kralith would notice their missing guard soon. The reactor level entrance was sealed behind a heavy blast door. Kate studied the control panel. It was standard human design from 30 years ago. She pulled out a bypass module from her suit's toolkit and connected it to the panel. The door groaned as old hydraulics engaged. Then slowly, very slowly, it began to open. Kate pulled herself through the opening and stopped. She was looking at something incredible. The reactor chamber was enormous. A massive cylinder sat in the center, surrounded by cooling systems and power conduits. Emergency lights bathed everything in amber light. The air hummed with the sound of active machinery, and the chamber was empty. No guards, no workers, nothing. The Kralith had not bothered to post anyone here. They felt safe. They thought no one could reach this place. Kate smiled grimly. Their mistake. Their fatal mistake. She pulled the cargo sled to the reactor housing and began unpacking the plasma charges. Each charge was shaped to punch through reinforced metal. Placed correctly around the reactor core, they would cause a chain reaction. The reactor would not just shut down. It would explode. The blast would vaporize the central hub instantly. The shockwave would tear through the station's structure like paper. The Krelith warship docked at the outer ring would be caught in the expanding cloud of debris. No one would survive. No one would escape. Kate worked carefully. She placed each charge with precision. This was not about rage anymore. This was not about anger. This was about justice. Cold, calculated, inevitable justice. She connected all the charges to a central detonator. The device had a timer. She set it for 30 minutes. That would give her enough time to reach the communications center. Enough time to send a message. Enough time to make sure the Krelith knew exactly who had done this to them. Kate activated the detonator. The display began counting down. 30 minutes. 29 minutes and 50 seconds. 29 minutes and 40 seconds. She left the reactor chamber. The blast door sealed behind her with a heavy thud. The sound felt final. Like closing a coffin lid. Kate checked her suit's chronometer. 28 minutes left. She had work to do. One more task before the end. One more message to send. The Krelith needed to understand something. They needed to know that humanity was not weak. That attacking human ships had consequences. That leaving survivors was the biggest mistake they could make. Kate pulled herself back through the hub, moving faster now. Time was running out. But she would make every second count. Kate moved through the central hub with purpose. 27 minutes left on the timer. The charges were set. The reactor would explode soon. But she had one final task to complete. She needed to reach the communications center. Epsilon 7 had been a major hub in its time. The station was equipped with powerful long-range transmitters that could send signals across multiple star systems. The Krelith would have kept those systems working. They needed them to coordinate with their fleet. The communications center was on the upper hub level. Kate found the access corridor and pushed through. She passed storage rooms filled with Krelith equipment, weapons, supplies, ammunition. This was more than just a hiding place. This was a full military base. How many attacks had been planned from here? How many human ships had been destroyed by raiders operating from this station? How many people had died while the Krelith celebrated their victories? Kate felt the cold anger return. It was not the hot anger that made people stupid. It was cold calculation, the kind that made you effective and dangerous. She reached the communications center and forced the door open. The room was not empty. 2 Krelith technicians sat at control consoles. Their attention was focused on their displays. They turned when Kate entered. Surprise showed clearly on their alien faces. One reached for a weapon. The other started to stand up. Kate grabbed a plasma charge from her belt and threw it hard. It was not armed, just a heavy metal cylinder. It hit the first technician in the head, snapping his head back violently. She followed with the plasma cutter, the beam slicing through the second technician's chest before he could draw his weapon. The first technician recovered, blood streaming from his head wound. He fumbled for his weapon with one hand while holding his bleeding head with the other. Kate crossed the distance in 2 bounds. She grabbed the weapon and smashed it against the console. The Krelith lunged at her. She sidestepped and drove the plasma cutter through his throat. The fight was over in seconds. Kate stood in the silent room, breathing hard. Her suit's life support system was working overtime. She checked her chronometer. 23 minutes left. She pulled one of the bodies away from the console and sat down. The systems were still active. Communication channels, fleet coordinates, patrol schedules. Everything was displayed on the screens in front of her. This was better than she had hoped. This was not just a communication center. This was a command post. The Krelith ran their entire fringe operation from this room. Kate pulled up the broadcast system. The long-range transmitter was operational. She could reach every Krelith vessel within 20 light years. Every ship, every base, every commander who thought they owned the fringe. She activated the recording system and faced the camera. Her helmet was scratched and scarred. Her suit was dirty and patched. She knew she looked like death itself. That was good. Let them see what they had created. Kate spoke clearly into the camera. Her voice was steady. "My name is Captain Kate Morgan. 10 days ago you destroyed my ship, the Valkyrie. You killed my crew, Danny Cole, Lisa Hayes, Alex Chen, Sam Rivera, Nina Brooks, Jake Peters. 7 good people who never hurt anyone. They were just trying to make a living in the fringe. She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera lens. You thought you could do that without consequences. You thought humanity was too weak to respond. You were wrong. Kate pulled up a tactical display and turned it toward the camera. This is Epsilon 7, your forward base, your staging ground. In approximately 20 minutes, it will cease to exist. The reactor core is set to explode. The blast will destroy this station and every ship docked here, including your warship. She paused, letting those words sink in. I want you to understand something important. This is not a military operation. This is not a sanctioned strike. This is one human alone with nothing left to lose. And I have done this to you. Kate stood up. The camera followed her movement. You like to raid transport ships. You like to attack unarmed vessels. You think that makes you strong. But let me tell you what real strength is. Strength is surviving when you should have died. Strength is turning a wreck into a weapon. Strength is coming here, alone, and taking everything from you. She looked around the communications center, at the Krelith equipment, at the displays showing their fleet positions. All of it would be gone soon. All of it would be destroyed. This is a message for every Krelith commander, every ship captain, every raider who thinks the fringe belongs to them. Humanity remembers. Humanity does not forgive. And if you come for us, if you destroy our ships and kill our people, we will come for you. Not with fleets, not with armies, but with individuals who will dedicate every breath to making you pay. Kate checked her chronometer. 18 minutes left. This station will be my grave, but it will be yours first. And every Krelith who sees this message will know that Kate Morgan, captain of the Valkyrie, made you bleed for what you did to my crew. She reached forward and programmed the message to broadcast on all Krelith military frequencies. The system would repeat it continuously. Every Krelith ship in range would receive it. They would all see her face, hear her words, know her name. Kate turned away from the camera and left the communications center. The message was sent. The timer was running. Now she just had to wait for the end. Alarms were blaring throughout the station. The Krelith had found the bodies. They had discovered the charges. Kate could hear them mobilizing. Their harsh voices echoed through the corridors. Running footsteps, shouting, panic, but it did not matter. They could not reach the reactor chamber in time. They could not stop the timer. They could not evacuate the station before the blast. It was already too late for them. Kate pulled herself through the hub one last time. She was heading for the outer ring. She was not trying to escape. There was no escape. No way back to the Valkyrie. No rescue coming. But she wanted to see it happen. Wanted to watch the Krelith warship try to run. Wanted to see them fail. She reached an observation window overlooking the docking ring. The Krelith warship was there, exactly where she had seen it days ago. And she could see movement now. The ship was trying to undock. Emergency thrusters were firing. They were trying to escape too late. Always too late. The timer had maybe 5 minutes left. The ship would never make it far enough away in time. Kate sat down by the window, her back against the bulkhead. She watched the stars outside. They were beautiful, peaceful, eternal. She thought of her crew one final time. Danny with his jokes, Lisa with her tools, Alex with their navigation charts, Sam with his medical equipment, Nina at the weapons console, Jake at communications. All of them gone. All of them avenged. She hoped they would understand. Hoped they would approve of what she had done. She had made the Krelith pay. Made sure that every raider in the fringe would hear the name Valkyrie and remember. Remember what happened when you underestimated humanity. 3 minutes left on the timer. Kate checked her suit's air supply. 2 hours remaining. More than enough. She would not suffocate. The explosion would be instant, painless 2 minutes. The Krelith warship was pulling away from the docking port. Thrusters at maximum. Desperate to escape, but they were still too close. Still inside the blast radius 1 minute. Kate closed her eyes. She was not afraid. She was not sad. She was satisfied. She had completed her mission. Done what needed to be done. Made them pay the price. 30 seconds. Kate opened her eyes one last time. She looked at the stars. At the Krelith warship still trying to flee. At the station that would soon be nothing but debris. She smiled. It was over. Her ship had been damaged. Her crew had died. But her revenge was complete, and for humanity this was just the beginning. The reactor core at Epsilon 7 detonated with incredible force. The blast was like a small nuclear weapon. The central hub vaporized instantly. The outer rings of the station shattered into millions of pieces. The Krelith warship that was trying to escape was caught in the explosion and torn apart. In less than 1 minute, 300 Krelith raiders were dead. The forward base that had launched dozens of attacks on human shipping was completely destroyed, and Kate Morgan's final message was broadcasting across every Krelith military channel, repeating endlessly. The first response came from a human patrol ship called the Defender. Captain Greg Palmer was operating near the fringe when he picked up the distress beacon from the Valkyrie. He went to investigate. What he found was a drifting wreck with a dead crew and a missing captain, but the ship's computer logs were intact. Palmer read Kate's final entries with growing shock. The attack, the survival, the plan, the impossible journey to Epsilon 7. Everything was documented. Then Palmer received intercepted Krelith broadcasts. He watched Kate's final message, saw her standing in the communications center, damaged and exhausted, delivering her warning with cold determination. Palmer understood immediately what had happened. 1 woman, 1 destroyed transport ship, 1 impossible mission. And she had succeeded. Palmer forwarded everything to Frontier Command. Within days, every human captain in the fringe had seen the footage. Kate Morgan's message spread through the fleet like wildfire. It reached the colonies. It reached every human settlement in known space. The Valkyrie had been a small ship. Nothing special. Its crew had been ordinary people doing ordinary work. But Kate Morgan's revenge had become something more. It had become a symbol. A message. A warning. The Krelith tried to suppress the message. They sent teams to hunt down copies. They executed their own people who were caught watching it. But it was too late. The message had spread beyond their control. And with it came something the Krelith had not expected. Fear. Humans were supposed to be easy targets. Soft civilians running cargo routes. Weak and afraid. But Kate Morgan had proven something different. She proved that humans did not need big fleets to be dangerous. They just needed determination and a reason to fight. Krelith raids in the fringe dropped by 70% within 1 month. Their commanders became cautious, unwilling to risk encountering another captain who would turn a wreck into a weapon. The psychological impact was greater than any military victory could have been. 6 months after the destruction of Epsilon 7, Frontier Command formally recognized Kate Morgan and the crew of the Valkyrie. They were awarded the Nova Star. It was humanity's highest honor for sacrifice in defense of civilian populations. The medals were presented to empty chairs in a ceremony attended by every senior officer in the fleet. 7 empty chairs for the dead crew, 1 empty chair for the captain who had avenged them. But the real memorial came from an unexpected source. Transport captains throughout the fringe began painting the name Valkyrie on their ships. Cargo haulers, supply vessels, mining transports. All of them displayed the name proudly. A reminder that civilian did not mean defenseless. 1 year after the incident, Frontier Command launched a new class of patrol ships. They were designed specifically for anti-raider operations, fast, heavily armed, and equipped with advanced tracking systems. The lead ship of the class was named the Kate Morgan. Its motto was simple. We remember. The Krelith Empire never formally acknowledged what happened at Epsilon 7. But their military doctrines changed completely. They stopped viewing human transports as easy targets. They began treating every encounter as potentially hostile. They learned too late that humanity's strength did not come from superior weapons or larger fleets. It came from the determination of individuals willing to fight when everything was lost. Kate Morgan had been just 1 woman, but her legacy became a warning that echoed through the galaxy. If you hurt humanity, someone will come for you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someone will come and they will not stop until you pay. In the years that followed, the story of the Valkyrie became legend. Parents told it to their children. Academy instructors used it in training courses. Veterans shared it over drinks, always raising a glass at the end for Kate and her crew. The fringe became safer, not because of military patrols or peace treaties, but because the raiders who once hunted freely now remembered what happened to those who pushed humanity too far. They remembered Epsilon 7. They remembered the Valkyrie. Most of all, they remembered Kate Morgan. 10 years after the incident, a memorial was built at the exact coordinates where the Valkyrie had been ambushed. A simple beacon broadcasting continuously. The message was short. Just 8 names and a single line. Captain Kate Morgan, Lieutenant Danny Cole, Chief Engineer Lisa Hayes, Navigator Alex Chen, Dr. Sam Rivera, Weapons Officer Nina Brooks, Communications Specialist Jake Peters. They died as crew. She lived for revenge. Together, they changed everything. Captain Greg Palmer of the Defender visited the memorial every year on the anniversary. He had been the one to find the Valkyrie. He had been the one to forward Kate's message to Frontier Command. In a way, he felt responsible for what came after, for the legend that grew from one woman's determination. On the 10th anniversary, he brought his crew. They stood in the observation bay of their ship, looking at the memorial beacon's light blinking in the darkness. One of his younger officers asked the question everyone eventually asked. "Do you think she knew, sir, that it would mean something?" Palmer thought about that for a long moment. He thought about Kate's final message, her cold fury, her determination. He thought about what drove someone to turn a broken ship into a weapon and launch themselves alone against impossible odds. "I don't think she cared about that," he said finally. "I think she just wanted them to pay for what they did." The lieutenant nodded slowly. "But it did mean something. It changed everything." "Yeah," Palmer agreed. "It did. That's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it's not just about what you take from your enemy. It's about what you leave behind." They stood in silence, watching the memorial beacon pulse in the dark. Out in the fringe, transport captains went about their routes with Kate Morgan's name painted on their hulls. Krelith raiders gave human ships a wide berth, remembering what happened at Epsilon 7. And somewhere in the debris field that had once been Epsilon 7, the atoms of a woman who refused to give up drifted among the stars. Her ship had been damaged. Her crew had died. But her revenge had become something greater than she could have imagined. It had become a promise that humanity would always keep. "Touch our people and someone will come for you. Destroy our ships and we will not forget. Kill our crews, and we will teach you the true meaning of human determination." The Krelith had learned that lesson at Epsilon 7. They had learned it from one woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. They had learned it from Captain Kate Morgan, and they would never forget. 20 years had passed since Epsilon 7. A whole generation had grown up hearing the story of Kate Morgan and the Valkyrie. For young people joining the fleet, it was not just history, it was inspiration. Lieutenant Sophie Grant stood on the bridge of her patrol ship, the Defender 2, looking at the memorial beacon that marked where the Valkyrie had died. She was 25 years old. She had been 5 when Epsilon 7 exploded. She barely remembered it happening, but she knew the story. Everyone did. It was taught at the academy. Required reading for all officers. Captain Kate Morgan's final message was shown to every new recruit. They watched her face on the screen, scarred and tired, delivering her warning to the Krelith with absolute determination. Sophie had watched that message dozens of times. Each time she felt the same chill run down her spine, the same sense of awe. One person, one destroyed ship, one impossible mission, and it had changed the entire balance of power in the fringe. "Lieutenant Grant," her captain called from across the bridge. "We're receiving a distress signal. Transport ship under attack. Krelith raiders. 3 hours away at maximum speed." Sophie felt her jaw tighten. Krelith raiders. They still operated in the fringe, though far less openly than before. They had learned to be more careful, more cautious, but they had not learned to stop. "Set course," the captain ordered. "Maximum speed. Battle stations." The Defender 2 turned away from the memorial and accelerated toward the distress signal. Sophie took her position at the weapons console. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced efficiency. She had trained for this, prepared for this. But as they raced through space, Sophie found herself thinking about Kate Morgan. What had she felt in those final moments? Knowing she was about to die, knowing she would never see another sunrise, never see her home again. Had she been afraid? Had she regretted her choice? Or had she felt only satisfaction, knowing that her crew would be avenged? 3 hours later, they arrived at the coordinates. A transport ship hung in space, its hull damaged but intact. 2 Krelith raider ships were circling it like sharks. They had disabled the transport's engines and were preparing to board. "This is the human patrol ship Defender 2, the captain broadcast on all frequencies. Krelith vessels, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This is your only warning." For a moment, nothing happened. Sophie watched the tactical display, her finger hovering over the weapons trigger. Would they fight? Would they run? The Kralith ships turned away from the transport and activated their jump drives. Within seconds, they were gone. They had fled without firing a single shot. Sophie released a breath she did not know she had been holding. The captain smiled grimly. "Still works," he said. 20 years later, and they're still afraid. They moved closer to the damaged transport. Sophie could see the name painted on its hull. The Valkyrie 3, another ship bearing Kate Morgan's legacy. There were hundreds of them now throughout the fringe, all carrying the name, all remembering. The transport captain's face appeared on their screen. A woman in her 50s looking shaken but alive. "Thank you, Defender 2. We thought we were finished." They came out of nowhere. "Are you injured?" Sophie's captain asked. "No casualties. Just damage to our engines. We can make repairs, but it will take a few hours. We'll stay with you until you're ready to move, and we'll escort you to the nearest station." The transport captain nodded gratefully. "I named my ship after the original Valkyrie," she said quietly. "Never thought I would need the protection that name carries. But today I'm glad I have it." After the call ended, Sophie's captain turned to look at his crew. "That's why we're out here," he said. "That's why Kate Morgan did what she did. Not just for revenge, but to make sure this never happens again without someone fighting back." Sophie nodded. She understood now, in a way she had not before. The story of Kate Morgan was not just about one woman's revenge. It was about sending a message that still echoed 20 years later. Humanity would not be victims, would not be easy prey, would not accept attacks without response. And that message had been bought with the blood of 8 people on a transport ship that should never have been attacked in the first place. Later that day, after the transport was safely on its way, the Defender 2 returned to the memorial beacon. Sophie requested permission to record a message. Her captain approved. Sophie stood before the ship's camera thinking about what to say, about how to honor someone she had never met but who had changed her life nonetheless. "Captain Morgan," she began, "my name is Lieutenant Sophie Grant. I serve on the Defender 2. Today we stopped a Kralith attack on a transport ship. They ran when they saw us. They ran because of what you did 20 years ago." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "I never knew you. I was just a child when you died. But I know your story. Everyone does. And I want you to know that your sacrifice meant something. It still means something." Sophie looked at the stars visible through the observation port. "The fringe is safer because of you. Human ships can travel without constant fear. Raiders think twice before attacking. All because one captain refused to accept defeat." She felt tears in her eyes but did not wipe them away. "Your crew died that day. Danny Cole, Lisa Hayes, Alex Chen, Sam Rivera, Nina Brooks, Jake Peters. I say their names because they deserve to be remembered, and you deserve to know that their deaths were not meaningless." Sophie stood straighter, giving a formal salute to the camera. "Thank you, Captain Morgan, for your courage, for your sacrifice, for showing us what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. We will never forget. We will keep the fringe safe in your honor." She ended the recording and uploaded it to the memorial beacon. Her message joined thousands of others, officers and crew members, transport captains and colonists, all leaving their thanks for a woman they never knew, but whose actions had touched their lives. The Defender 2 stayed at the memorial for another hour. The crew held a moment of silence. They read the names of the Valkyrie's crew aloud. 8 names, 8 people who had become immortal through tragedy and revenge. As the ship prepared to leave, Sophie took one last look at the beacon. Its light pulsed steadily in the darkness. A constant reminder, an eternal warning, a promise kept across decades. Kate Morgan had been just one person, a transport captain doing her job. But when the worst happened, when everything was taken from her, she had made a choice. Not to give up. Not to accept defeat, but to fight back with everything she had left. And that choice had echoed through the years. Changing tactics, changing doctrine, changing how enemies viewed humanity. One woman's revenge had become a lesson that would never be forgotten. The Kralith had learned it first. The hard way. At a place called Epsilon 7. They had learned what happened when you destroyed a human ship and left a survivor. They had learned what it meant to face someone with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. Other races had learned the lesson too. By observation, by warning, by the simple fact that human ships traveled safely through regions that had once been death traps. The galaxy knew now. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the Defender 2 jumped away from the memorial, Sophie sat at her station and thought about her future. She would continue serving, continue protecting human ships in the fringe, continue honoring the sacrifice of those who came before her. And if the day ever came when she faced impossible odds, when everything seemed lost, she would remember Kate Morgan. She would remember that one person could make a difference, that determination could overcome any obstacle, that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons or its ships, but in the spirit of individuals who refused to quit. The memorial beacon continued to pulse in the darkness, sending its message across the void. 8 names, 1 promise, an eternal reminder of the day humanity showed the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. Her ship was damaged. Her crew was dead. Her revenge was complete, and her legacy would live forever.